As musicians, I think that it's really important that we keep a really solid repertoire. And the problem that we have sometimes is that when we get to a certain stage, we think that we have to stick at that stage and then strive for better. And we never look back. We never think about playing pieces of music that are beneath us. In other words, they're simpler, they're below our current standard. So if we're intermediate standard, we don't look to beginner pieces. If we're advanced standard, we might not look to intermediate pieces, and certainly not at beginner pieces. And what struck me is that I'm learning a piece of music by Schubert at the moment, one of his impromptus, and I'd say it's probably top end intermediate, but it's taken me quite a while to learn it because there's a lot of sections to it, and it's by the end of it I'll no doubt have a really nice 10-minute performance. But the problem is I'm spending so much time on this 10-minute performance that I'm not really developing any other repertoire. So in that space of time I could actually be developing a lot more repertoire by focusing on things that are also below my standard. So what I've turned to are obviously shorter pieces of music, things that are on a couple of sides, and also things that I think are much more playable anyway. And I've come across, I've got a couple of books of his now, Grieg, lyrische Stücke, so lyric pieces, and these are, there's kind of a mixture in terms of standard, but they certainly don't go as far as advanced. You get sort of like, I'd say sort of low to mid-intermediate level. And I'm playing through them and I'm realising that actually it's really good because to me they're really quite easy. And that's important, I think, because there's a few different reasons as to why it's important. The first reason is because it's validation. So when you're putting a lot of effort into learning something that you're struggling or spending a lot of time and a lot of effort to get good, it can really drain you, and not only can it drain you physically, it can make you think to yourself, I'm not as good as I think I am. So it's really quite validating to be able to pick up a piece of music that's easier, that's lower than your current standard, and to kind of go, right, okay, I can play, and I can play well. But on top of that, it also brings to light certain techniques. And it puts techniques into a context that are actually usable in a nice musical context. So for example, the very first lyric piece of all of them is the Arietta. And this is a really good example of something. It's pretty straightforward to play. You're looking at this, and I'm going to play this absolutely plain now. This is with no emotion, nothing, right? This is how it's written. And that's fine, but then you could say, well, it's a great exercise for voicing, but without being a particularly complex piece of music. Yeah, you can do exercises for voicing that are like, find that top note, make that top note louder and stuff like that, but it's boring. If you can actually contextualize that to an actual piece of music, it's great. So what you need to do with a piece like this is make sure that instead of having instead of having this sort of constant dynamic between all the notes, is to make sure that the melody is the bit that's louder. So you can use that as an exercise to really sort of put that force onto that side of the hand, so that you are really bringing that melody out. Therefore, you see, suddenly it becomes an exercise, it becomes something that you can use to practice, and not only that, it adds to your repertoire. It's a really, really nice piece of music. Nobody's going to listen to that and go, well, he's not a very good pianist because it's an easy piece, it's a basic piece. People are going to listen to that and go, oh, it's good, he can play piano. So there's one example. And then if you go a couple in, you've got this Wächterlied, which is the Watchman song. which is very nice. I might play this all for you actually because it is a very, very nice piece. I might put it at the end of the video. I'll do a recording of it. So this is a good one as well because it sort of encourages dynamic through simplicity. So you could easily read through this and just sort of... And that's nice. Obviously it wants to be a bit slower than that anyway, but also if we sort of encourage that dynamic, and it's a really good way of practicing our emotion almost when we're playing, so sort of... And again, when we've got these chords here, you don't want to be heavy-handed with the whole thing. You want the top note to be shining through, so that if anybody listened to that, they can pick out the melody. So if they're singing along, they can go da 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 like that. And it goes on like that, really. I mean, there's this lovely Geist of the Night, Ghost of the Night intermezzo section here in the middle. You know, this is also sort of good for really practicing that quiet section and rapid sort of... You know, and getting used to triplets, dynamics. There's all sorts of things that are just quite straightforward, really, in terms of the actual performance, in terms of playing it. But you can use this, you can work with it. You can already play it quite well, but you can improve other things just by, you know, other techniques just by playing around with it. You know, sort of saying, what if I made this bit a bit quieter? What if I brought the melody out here? What if I slowed this bit down or sped it up, maybe a rise and fall? And you'll be well in your capability to do that, because I always say things like scales are good blank canvases for practicing things. Like you can practice a crescendo, for example, and you can do that going down, which is a slightly less natural. You know, practice things like that. But at the end of the day, a scale's a scale. You know, who's going to have fun sat there playing a scale, no matter what technique you're learning with it? You know, you want something with a bit of colour to it. So always consider pieces of music that you can already play in, potentially, you know, pieces that are quite straightforward to you. Because like I say, there's 3 reasons for it. Great for perfecting certain exercises, great for practicing exercises with, you know, technique and stuff. Great for adding to your repertoire, because, you know, Grieg, for example, you know, not renowned for his piano work, and there might be a reason. I mean, his piano work is not amongst the most advanced. You know, he's not like Chopin or someone like that, for example. But you sort of you're pulling from all these different influences. You sort of saying, I can play some Grieg now, which is really good. And like I say, it's just that personal sense of validation. You sort of say to yourself, it's good because it sort of rewards you, because there is music out there that you can play really well, and you just have to constantly remind yourself that sometimes, because it can be very draining when you are practicing a more advanced piece, especially if you're putting all your focus into that. Anyway, here's Special Delete. you.